Wonderful. We are here again at Owning Her Health. I have the amazing, beautiful, vivacious LA Glassford here. As you heard in the introduction, all these wonderful things. Definitely go check her out over on LinkedIn where I found her. And one of the things that stood out for me that I connected with her on to originally ask LA to be on the show was just you know me when I'm talking about the curvy hustle, when I'm talking about kind of showing up a little more boldly in our purpose and as our person and with our process. She had made a post age related and whatnot. And I think that we're really, some of the things we're doing now is just showing a completely different version of the whole package of this sort of evolved woman who is holding the energy of authentic power. So thank you so much, LA, for being on. I'm going to turn this over to you. Just kind of give us a synopsis of just who you are and what it is you are really here to do.
Well, I think, to be honest, first of all, thank you for having me, because I think that's, when you first reached out to me. So I'd like to talk about that for just a second, because, I've been starting to use my voice, and I'll talk about how I got to feeling comfortable doing that, and what happened with the post. But when you first reached out to me, and I think this happens to a lot of us, like, why is she reaching out to me? I'm nobody. I just have, I had a voice. I said something. I looked at your website and what you're doing. I'm like, she's way, way out of my league. There's just no way she's not going to. Why would she want to talk to me? What is it that she wants? Like, what's the hidden agenda? We are just so self-doubting. And immediately it was, okay, well, I'll take a call and see what it was. Right. And I remember sharing this with you and saying, like,
and I thought that was just crazy. Like, I hope you're hearing this, guys, because this is so elemental to even why I even started this podcast, is because sometimes we think we are so far from these people that we and just listening to that when LA was saying that to me, I was like, are you crazy? In fact, that's what I said back to you. I'm like, are you crazy? You've like done all this stuff for like Fortune 500 companies and this and this and that. Like how we view ourselves. Meanwhile, I'm like, oh my God, like my website is like so not together. Like, and she's looking at, like we have got to, as women, understand who we are in the room. So I love that you're sharing that.
But when we are used to decades of going through the door into the room, being one person, and then being treated, spoke to, whatever, and then walking out a different, less version of ourselves.
Such a good point.
Right? When we're used to doing that, it becomes an innate go-to. That's the comfort zone. That is the comfort zone. So, but, all of that vulnerability that I shared with you in that feeling was all based on the fact that I only have a high school education. See how I said only? Again, cut out, edit, don't edit. But it's not only. I have an MBA in lived experience that nobody else has. And working for huge companies, global companies. But at the end of the day, that's my 13-year-old self and my 18-year-old self going, you didn't show up. You just left university. You just went, that's not for me. Didn't show up for your first exams. And you just took off. How irresponsible. Irresponsible. That was the best decision I ever made for me, because it set me on my life's journey. So, these last couple months, I've just leaned into me, which was previously very much, well, that's egotistical. That's selfish. Who do you think you are? Right. So I think we talked about this earlier, but the last few decades, I didn't realize it, but I was very much in my masculine energy. And so I didn't have a name for it. I didn't know that, but I've come to realize that that's what I was in order to cope, in order to lead. Is that what leadership looks like? That's what I don't want. I'm going to lean into this. I'm going to lean into that. I'd be in the room where there was inappropriate behavior or jokes, but you know what? I guess to be a leader, you're supposed to laugh. And I guess I'm supposed to prop that individual up. And so, as I got older, it became more clear to me that I was having an inner turmoil, and there was this friction going, it's not cool, but I don't want to lose my job. What if I say too much? Right. And so for me, getting to the space that I am now took another traumatic event. I mean, for me, it was traumatic. I was at the top of my game. There was light being shined on me in my organization, right? I had all different posts outside of my job, and I was restructured out under business reasons,
Yeah.
right? To that day,
Rug pulled
knocked
out
me
from
at
under.
my knees. Talk about blindsided. I mean, the
Yeah.
people in the industry that called me went, "What the actual F?" Like, LA, what's going on? Nobody in the company, but everybody outside the company. And so for me, what I didn't realize, which I said the other day, was what a gift. Like, what a gift. Because I didn't know it at the time, but it's enabled me to step into where I am today. It's allowed me to launch my second business in 2 months. It is
Mm-hmm.
flourishing. I am, leaning into helping women, and it's a very comfortable space for me. It's a very I'm so proud of the work that I'm doing together with these women, because we're all in the work. And I'm just trying to get rid of, everything that we're taught. I'm like taking off all of
Right.
those layers and just
Right.
showing up as
The
ourselves.
unmasking. You say a couple of things there that, like, in my circles, I call that this point of unbecoming.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's what we're really realizing is that it's not that I don't want to say that I almost feel like we have to put on those robes for the world, at least that we lived in,
Oh
to
yeah.
understand
Yeah, yeah.
how to run that role. But there is this pivotal point, which I think so many women are so disconnected from, that I do believe is a unique womanhood experience. And when I say womanhood in my circles, I am talking about the womb holders,
Yes.
the XX,
Yeah.
and not just identifying, but identifying and living it cellularly, energetically, behaviorally, all of it, culturally, and things like that. Because it is a unique experience, and I think we sometimes get lost in the equality conversations. That this inequity, because of that experience, is sort of lost in us, even in us amongst our own sisterhood of looking at each other. We're like, right? Like, why can't that stay at home mom do more freaking laundry when I'm working and I do laundry? And why are, we get all this infighting from the loss of the inequity conversation through the whole equality. So I love that, you embrace that. And I know some people are like, this masculine feminine thing's not real, it's a social construct. No, it's not.
I
There's a
Right.
bipolar, call it whatever you want. You
Whatever
want
you
to
want
call
to call
it
it.
A, B, yin yang, but there's definitely a polarity, and we are all a mix.
We
We're
are a mix.
all
And
a mix.
I stepped into, again, whatever pole, I call it my masculine energy
Mm-hmm,
after looking back and having
mm-hmm,
really
mm-hmm.
delved into the learning. But for me, that's how I survived. That was my coping mechanism.
Right.
That's how I protected my peace up until this past year. That's how I protected my peace, right? Who do I need to be to satisfy others? Who do I need to be to serve others? Oh, when I act like this, that gets me what I need. That's how I'm going to act. And that was all taking pieces away from me, right? So not until I got to an age or a point where there weren't a lot of pieces left
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
that reflected who I was, did my energy go, whoa, 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 I'm here, and I'm not going to be ignored anymore. So when I stopped uh ignoring and I started to absorb, it became transformative. So I I stepped into a new journey and made a decision.
Yeah, and so many women go into entrepreneurship that way. That is key difference, I think, between women and men. We sort of go in, and the stats show that when women founders get their money, they pump it back into the community, they pump it back into themselves, into their families, at a rate of 70% versus men at 30%. Not saying men are bad. What I'm saying is there is 40% more that we are pumping back in, because we get catalyzed into these positions, not because it was our life stream to build an IPO and then sell it and whatever,
Right.
but because we see this is what we need to do. It's somewhat of a survivalist way to move in, but with that intention, we build things. So tell me the name of your companies, and kind of how did your story birth
Yeah, sure.
birth this?
Sure. So, so I birthed my first company, my corporation, the Glassford Group, on March 27th. I pressed go while on a plane to Whistler.
Love it.
Um, It focuses on real estate development. It focuses on food and beverage and experience. Essentially, I launched it because that's what all I had been doing for the last probably 20 years in store development and construction and real estate and store design. And essentially, for me, it was all about the human experience. So I launched it to help those developers and people doing their master plans, or people buying existing buildings and wanting to turn them into something that really, really gave a sense of community. So you need the right restaurants, you need the right entertainment, and so on and so forth. So, and then on the other side, I also helped food and beverage brands understand the landlord community. Having been on both sides of the table, I've been in an F&B brand, I've been in a landlord, I've been a developer. So having been on both sides of the table, depending on who my client is, I can help them. I can give them the secret, right? And this is what the landlord wants. This is what the developer wants.
Here's the medicine. This is where
Here's
the
the
medicine woman works, right? She knows that she's an alchemist. She
And
can
I'm
pull
right.
together things
I'm a
and make something new.
connector. I'm a relationship builder. I lead with my integrity and my intuition. So I also had never wanted to let go of the women in leadership role. So I also, at the same time I launched my company, part of the third prong of my company was that I will work with teams who want to see more women in leadership. I will show you how to do that, how to launch it, and how to embrace it. You know, interestingly enough, everybody I consulted before I launched my business said, you know what, I like the website and everything, you know, it's just a landing page, but you might want to take off the leadership. It's a bit too confusing. And if the male-driven real estate world starts to see like you're also in this women in leadership, they might go, oh, we don't want her coming to my, and I thought, oh, for God's sake, that is exactly why I need to.
Exactly. Like, well, then that's great because I will just focus on the women in real estate.
So this is what's happened. So, I met with the players. I've got ghosted by a couple of companies, which I think was really unprofessional. I mean, if I'm going to come in and, pitch to you and I'm going to put all this time and money into like analyzing your site and everything, at least you can do is return my call, right? Or my email. But what I noticed was as I became stronger in my personal voice on LinkedIn and my Instagrams, because I've got many accounts outside my Glassford group, it started to resonate. And all of a sudden someone said, well, could I hire you for this? I'm like, sure. I never thought of that, but sure. Now, my contracts right now, I mean, I'm so busy, but my contracts right now are all with organizations trying to get women in leadership into their business, figuring out a way to do that because ownership is male or the leadership is male and they really want to lean into it. Now, some of them it's leaning into it because they're getting, contract requests or vendor requests that are saying, what's your leadership team look like? Is it diverse? And they're like, oh shit, I need help doing this. And in others, it's more, altruistic. So, and then I'm also helping some young women get from manager to director to VP to C-level. So I'm also doing that. But what happened was I started to use my voice without fear on LinkedIn. You see how we connected. You saw some of my posts. When I did my post on ageism, I did not expect it to go viral. It was like any other post. I shared a personal story. I tied it into what was happening with Lisa LaFlemme and everything else. I pressed go and I laughed and I came back and it blew up. And I think it's like 130, I don't know, whatever, 1,000 views. But what happened was the women that I connected with and still now have a relationship with, I mean, it broke my heart. It also inspired me and it told me to dial it up, not dial it back, right? I said earlier, my voice is based on my lived experience. I'm not going to change anymore. I'm not going to filter it based on how you may or may not receive it, if you may or may not like me. That's no longer a concern of mine. You're going to have a judgment of me, for me, about my behavior, my dress, what I say, my experience, my business. And that has nothing to do with me. So I needed to step into my authentic
power.
I was.
Yeah, force. We're forces as individuals. And this really is a conversation um, for all human beings. It's just that when you are the oppressed, that you kind of have a sense of how it is
Yeah.
to be in those shoes a little differently, right, than
All I can
somebody
speak to.
else.
Someone
Hmm.
actually asked me the other day, LA, I know that you're involved in pride and you're involved in this and so on. And, inclusivity is inclusivity. Why are you focusing on women? Okay, first of all, that does not mean that my, philanthropy does not extend past
Right,
women. I can only speak about a woman's perspective because that is my lived experience. How dare I speak to an experience of someone who's not me? I don't have a right. So I am using my lived experience. I'm putting it out there. If that resonates and that can help individuals, which it's showing it is, I will continue to do this. But I cannot speak as anything other than who I
right,
am and
right.
my
And your
experience.
experience in that relationship, and I'm always talking about, like,
Yes.
it's so mind-boggling to me that well, it's not mind-boggling really, because it's like we just again, it's just the system that we've been in to compartmentalize, because we've been given a system that's very logical to the powers that be.
Yeah.
But that's not the system and the operating system of every human on this earth. And there's a huge percentage where we, literally have structures made differently to be the complement, not the alternative.
That's right.
Only alternative if it means that it would be better efficiencies. The problem is when you're living in a world where everyone ignores who the better leader might be just because it's not the norm
Yeah.
for whatever reason, then we've got a problem. And we're seeing the illness in the structures, the dis-ease
Yeah.
in our society,
Yeah.
right? And it's in our bodies now, and it's in our minds now, and it's in our families, and this and this and that.
It is. It is. And you say that. And for me, I didn't so what I ended up doing is I ended up first of all, if anybody has a coach and their coaches or their therapists don't have coaches and therapists, I always say fire your
Yeah,
coach.
right.
Because
Everybody
right, I
needs
mean,
it.
like it is an ongoing thing. If you're working with someone who doesn't have any help, then that means to me that they're stalled in their learning. And I'm
Mhm.
forever learning, regardless of 59 years old.
Mhm.
And so for me, what I did is I stepped into what do I need to do to make myself more accountable? What do I need to do to make myself listen to me? And how do I get rid of this fear, this need for people to like me? Like,
Mm.
how do I, from when I was born, like from when I was really little, I was always the energetic one, but I was always, she's so sensitive. She's so, everything bothers her. She's so emotional. That's my secret. The fact that
Right.
I have all these emotions that I'm able to like put
Right.
together and my intuition, that is actually my secret. And that's who I am. It's my authentic self. And I'm no longer going to apologize for it.
Right.
I'm
And
letting it go. And
how are
it's
how are we
driving my
supposed
decision
to
making.
I mean, how are we supposed to learn how to work with that? And we do. Everybody, whatever your personality is, you do have to learn the boundaries and the
Yeah.
situations. We have to learn interpersonal
Sure.
skills. But when
Sure.
it's repressed and told not to, then you don't even get to even practice that, right? You have got to take a mask at that point.
Well,
And so,
you have to.
you
That's
have
how
to.
you get through it, right?
So,
So
like,
for me,
you of 10, 20 years ago, if you could have speak to LA then, knowing what you know now, because we really can. These are these moments of meditation. We definitely know time is the construct, not the polarities in the world.
it is
Time is the construct. At this moment, what would you like to whisper into her ear?
10 years ago. Well, 10 years ago, I would have been 49. Let's just think about
What
it,
goddess wisdom
right?
can we
So I'm right. I'm
share to
almost
her
turning
now?
50. Yeah, I would whisper a few things to her. I would whisper that I forgive you.
Ugh,
I would
yeah.
first say, like, I get emotional thinking about that,
Mm,
but I would immediately say, honey, 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 it's okay. It is not your fault, the things that you did in order to cope and be to where you are today. Forgive yourself. You needed to do that in your moment in order to protect yourself. And guess what? That got you to where you are right now.
yeah.
So as you step into your 50s, darling, I'm here. Step into your intuition. start leaning toward the yeses, but do no longer look backward at what you could have or should have done. You got yourself here because of how you got yourself through the trauma, the betrayal, all of that. And you made big mistakes along the way that allowed you to learn. I would wrap her in my arms. I really would, because I remember being, going to be I turned 40 and I'm like, I loved it. I felt like I stepped into my
Yeah,
power.
I find
Like
me too. I was like, okay,
40s was
now's where we really
amazing,
get it going.
right?
Yeah.
I met my husband.
Mm.
We got married. Like there was so many beautiful things about my stepping into 40. But when I was stepping into 50, I was like, I don't feel 50. I feel like I'm 25, maybe 30. I had kids late in life. And I have a wonderful husband who's significantly younger than I am. And I felt young and I felt energetic. I didn't feel like 50, because in my mind, 50 meant I'm going down the roller
I
coaster.
hear you, because I just in August turned 50, and I'm like, that's where I am. So I'm listening to your
Right?
words and I'm like, I'm holding them, LA. I'm
Oh
holding
my
them.
God,
Thank
let
you.
me tell you the beauty that is about to come your way. Like it's just, so here's the thing. I would just let her know that she's forgiven and to let go of all that weight that she's carrying, because um, it actually doesn't matter. And yet I also know that I'm here today because of what happened to me after I stepped into my 50,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
So I had all of these experiences. And, for me, separation is a big issue for me. It's a foundational for most of my fears: abandonment,
Mhm.
betrayal,
Mhm. Mhm.
separation. That's where I can put most of and I'm being very vulnerable and sharing this
Yeah,
with you.
thank you
But
so
for
much.
me, that is where my fear is based, right? If I don't do this, they'll leave. If I don't
Mhm.
do this, they'll betray me. And then I give them too much of me, and see, they misused my trust.
Then you get resentful, and
Then
then you
you
get,
get
yeah.
resentful, and then I go, okay, I got to cover up again. I got,
Mhm.
I tried it. I thought I could step in, but maybe I couldn't. So for me, when I went to Nasara back in May, after spending an inordinate amount of time, the last probably 2 years, trying to find women and people and coaches that could help me, I actually found the people that could help me. And I got very uncomfortable and I surrendered myself to these women, all younger, all very talented, and all really committed to me. And that if I wasn't going to do the work, they weren't going to work with me. I needed to get very serious. And I got very serious. Physically, and mentally, I have lost a lot of, like, the weight, the
Mhm.
heaviness that has come off.
Mhm.
Um, and that has been because of that's stepping into my power. And each of us have that. But for me, it's all about the fear.
Mhm.
Patriarchy stems from fear. God forbid the women rise to power. It's all fear. And
Mhm.
then for us, it's the fear of, well, what if I do? But what if you don't?
Right.
Like I
What
built this
if I'm
retreat,
successful? What does that
right?
mean?
Like what does successful mean? So I've built this. I went and did this retreat. I've got this retreat booked in Nasara. What if they don't come? What this is all thinking when I
Mhm.
booked everything. And my husband was like, but what if they do?
Right.
And I'm
Right.
like, well, what if it doesn't work? He's like, what if it does? Look what you're going to do, honey. Like, look what you're already doing. Like, look at the women that are coming into your life, and you keep learning and you keep growing and you keep changing. These young women in my life are kicking my ass, and I'm learning all sorts of new things that I want to take on, and I want to help them. So for me, when I launched Unlocking Her, it was because I felt like I had been unlocked. And for
Mhm.
me, I already had a business. It wasn't
Mhm.
about how should I make some money. It
Mhm.
was about how can I help other women. Okay, I'm going to use my voice. As I'm using my voice, I'm meeting strangers. They're coming into my life. Um, okay, that's resonating. I should write. So I'm starting
Mhm.
to write more, and I'm starting
Mhm.
to share more. And then people ask me to be in their podcast. And then people ask me for speaking
Right.
engagements. And then it's
Right.
like, can
This
you
is
write
how you
me
do
this?
it. And this is
It's
the
amazing.
alignment. This is how we lead. This is
Right.
how we lead. And when you don't lead this way, it doesn't matter who lets you in at their table or in their room or whatnot. If you're just standing there like a freaking ornament, not showing up or just doing what everybody else did, nobody gets this kind of thing, right?
It doesn't. And and because fear is really, so it's fear, but there's just so much inaction out there. And that's honestly, that's what really is frustrating to me right now. I mean, even like, you know, everybody can say that they want to be, I don't know, diverse, inclusive. They can say they want more women in
Mhm,
leadership.
mhm,
Like the McKinsey report, it comes out
mhm.
every single
I
year.
know, I know.
Every single year it comes out, and then your LinkedIn and your Instagram and then
Yeah,
Global Mail and
right.
all the different,
We've all
leadership
proved what we've been talking about.
right.
What are we
But
walking?
what
I
are
get
we
it.
doing about it? It's really great that now we have statistics that say it once
I
again,
know.
that for
It's just
87% of
because
women, like,
everybody loves to be right, but nobody's actually.
but what are we doing
I
about it?
know. What are we
Like,
doing?
what are the actual actions that we're doing about it? And I said this earlier. I mean, Madeleine Albright said it best when she said there's a special place in hell for women that don't lift or support other women. I feel that in my bones. I believe that as women, we have a responsibility to be there and lift other women. We have that responsibility. You can protect your seat at the table and build more chairs
Right.
or bigger
With
tables for other women.
100% responsibility. Because, I, in my circles, I talk a lot about like that leap into, there's the hero's journey.
Right.
And this is for worldly, a worldly state of mind in terms of success. And then they made, Murdoch made the heroine's journey just to sort of give a little bit of more of
Right.
the emotional, social to it. But the reality is, you still end up from the fool to, the world. But there's this other level you're talking about, which I think is very unique and very, like I said, this sacred. Here's the point. Every human being, it is scientifically and spiritually said, we all go back to one womb. There
Yeah.
has got to be a significance to that. We don't all go back to one sperm donor. We go back to one womb.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
there's a fabric within that one X that we all share. I'm going to call the X the yin and the Y the yang, and we
It
just got
is.
a double dose of it. LA, so let's just say you're successful with this, okay? You're
Okay.
going to get her, unlock her. You're going to have your Glassford group doing its stuff. You're going to be showing up the way you need to show up and this and that. We're 10 years down the road,
Yeah.
10 years past the onset of the pandemic. The
Yeah.
world has, done whatever it's going to do.
Yeah.
What right now, if we're going to just be quiet and momentarily listen to LA of that year,
Right.
2032,
2032.
what is she telling us right now?
God, I hope it's a better place for women. I just again,
So
like
is it? Are
it
we putting
becomes
that there? It
emotional.
is.
I
It
mean,
is.
I guess what I would say is I would tell myself. So if I was sitting there and I
You're
was like,
there. We're channeling her
so if
in
I'm
because
there and I'm talking right now
and
and I'm
you've been successful. You've done
right,
it. You've done it. And
I
she
would
and we're
I would
gonna hold
actually
that
sit there.
intention.
You know how we said before, like, what would I tell my younger self 10
Right.
years ago? And I said I would forgive her and I would wrap
Mhm.
my arms around her. If it was 10 years ahead of time, and what would I tell myself looking back? So my future self was
Yeah. What
coming
is
to
she
me.
telling you right now? What is she
She
telling you?
would be so proud of the organization that I have built, this global organization that is just getting onto the ground, of your speaking engagements, of the way you are leaning into this, and you have dropped that fear and you are teaching others. And I would just say, trust me, lean into all the yeses, everything that comes into you that says, I should probably go this way, take that path. Even if it means that other people around you are like, really? Are you sure? Like, do you really want to go down there? That seems a bit risky. Go. If as soon as you feel it in here and you feel that this is where I need to be, this is who I need to go with, this is what I need to say, lean into it, LA. Trust me, you are on the right path, because you are not just being transformed yourself, you are transforming other women, and you are giving them the ability and the freedom and the permission to
Mm.
put themselves first. Because when we put ourselves first, we're able to serve others better. Like, that's the thing. My transformation has had a profound effect on those people around me in a hugely positive way. My kids, my husband, those people I react with, that is the gift I did not expect. No
Mhm.
one could have told me that when I first started to work on myself and put me first, no one
Mhm.
else, right? Who am I, but not in relationship to others, not as a
Mhm.
mother, not as an executive,
So
not as this.
important, so important.
Who
Did
am I
everybody hear that? Who am I?
when not
But
in
not
relationship?
in relationship to others.
I don't think, listen, I'm not going to, judge the audience here, but I couldn't answer that question.
Most
I'm like,
people
well,
can't.
I'm a VP, I'm an executive, I'm a mother, I'm a da da da,
Yeah, the roles we
a
play.
traveler, okay, none of that described who I was. None of that described like who I was. I needed to figure out who I was in order to step in. And when you do, it's so freeing because there is no right or wrong. It's just who I am. And there are going to be people who understand it and who stand alongside me and guide me. And there are also people who will not understand. There will be people who are feared by my power and by myself leaning in. There are people who won't believe it. But at the end of the day, that's
There's
not
going to be a hell of a lot of people, which is what we don't say enough, right? What are our wins?
right.
What are our wins? There are going to be a hell of a lot of people that love it. There's going to be, and that is, they've done research, right? Where they show like, boys kind of grow up just assuming everyone will love it, and
Right.
girls grow up thinking of the expectations. Well, I'll just be tough enough when they don't. And the actual, let's just flip it. Like you said, like, what if they do? This is the
What
work
if
we
they
have.
do?
This is what we have to do. This is
Right.
what we have to do. There doesn't have to be another law changed or not changed
Right.
or whatever. Like,
Right.
this is how we do that. I love that, Ellie. So like, where can we find you? We're like, if we're totally in love and just say, I got to know this woman and connect,
Yeah.
where's the
Okay.
best
So
place to
I
find you?
have built a new platform. I call it I don't even know what it's called right now. Right now,
Hmm.
I don't even have a name for what it is. But to me, it's
It's a
like a
mess.
platform for women to use their voice. It's called
Hmm.
Unlocking Her. So you can
Hmm.
go to unlockingher.ca.
Okay.
You can also go to Unlocking Her on Instagram. Those are my two platforms right now.
Okay.
On the website, which I just launched last week,
Hmm.
that website right now is focused on my Nosara retreat. So I
Hmm.
have taken all the coaches that really helped me and continue to hold me accountable. I've curated a retreat, 4 nights, 5 days in Nosara, one of the blue zones of the world. It's beautiful.
Hmm.
You can't
Yeah,
help
I've heard
but
about
get
it. Such
healed
beauty.
there.
Hmm.
In a very private, safe space for a very small group of women. There's a couple seats there's a couple spaces still available for the end of November. So right now on Unlocking Her, it is focused on the retreat. You'll hear my story. You'll meet the coaches. You'll see where you're staying. But it's not, Unlocking Her is just not about the retreat. It's a voice for women. I'm adding my blog soon. I'll be launching a podcast. I am writing a book. I am offering leadership one-on-one coaching. I already have several clients and women that I coach. And for me, it is more of a safe space for women. How can I pay this forward? How can I take my learnings and how can I curate something so that nobody else has to do the work to figure out how do I put myself first? I'm going to create that
Love it.
toolkit.
Love it. And it's going to be, I mean, I love it already. It's right up the curvy hustle society alley, or this curvy world that I'm creating, because there's going to be these circles of women in my vision that, I'm connecting now with the people who will hold their own circles, and we will link together like the Olympic rings, but
Right.
instead of being a competition against each other, we're going to figure out how this is some sort of
But you know what? Let me
collaboration.
just say this. That competition, that women competition, that was devised by men. Okay.
Yeah,
Like,
it knocks
let's
out
just
half the
call it.
competition,
Okay.
right? It
No,
distracts us.
we don't have to compete against each other. We can be there to uplift each other.
Right,
And if we do that, we rise together. But
right,
if we think that there's actually competition, that actually
right.
does not help us.
And,
That
and
helps
it's a
everybody else.
different flip on competition too. I think it's just,
Right.
again, it's the yin to the yang. It's the how could competition fuel us
Yeah.
instead of have us figure out, like, all the energy you think that just in human beings, right? Like, that they're working so much energy to tear someone down so that they can
Yeah.
stay the same,
Yeah.
instead of just using that energy to propel themselves up and then
Right.
see what the hell they're gonna do from that point of view. So thank you so much for showing that, side of it and where we can contact you. Is there anything you wanna leave this audience with? If there's is there a certain quote that kinda gets you through? Is there a certain word, a mantra, something that you're just
You know
inspired
what?
by at the moment? You've given us so many gems, but I'm gonna be selfish and ask for one more.
Um, I would just say none of it matters.
You
Like, just
matter,
take a
but
deep
none of it.
breath, like, take a deep breath, hand on
Mm. Mhm.
none of all that matters. All that judgment and all those thoughts that are in your head that say, "You can't do it. There's no way." I can't go on the retreat because I can't take my kids to Disney World, so I can't afford to, spend the money going on a retreat. I can't go and do this for me because so and so needs me. I can't just leave my kids at home because I can't go into the boardroom. I can't do this. I can't wear that. Whatever it is, none of it
Amen.
matters. People are going to feel a certain way no matter what you do. So you know what? Do what you want to do in the moment. And if you need help doing it, call me, reach out to another woman, like be vulnerable. But all I'm saying is that you matter. This matters more than anything else, more than anything else. And it will never steer you wrong. Ever, 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 ever. It will not
Amazing.
steer you wrong if you listen to what's here.
Amazing advice.
I mean,
Amazing advice. I will finish it off on that. Anybody who I'm this you have got to go on you have got to go watch I'm going to put the video on the YouTube. Usually it's just the cover and then you hear the audio. You've got to see us, the energy. I mean, this is it. This is held space. Um,
and you know what? It
I
is the energy. It is the energy.
it's
And
the energy.
frequently I would have been told, like, you're too scattered, you're too disorganized. No, I'm not too
Yeah.
I'm
It just
very organized.
people don't understand the
You
relationship between
misunderstood my
gravity and
energy.
entropy.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Mm.
it's one big physics experience, and as I told you on LinkedIn, LinkedIn's not ready for you, it's not ready for me, it's not ready for but get ready, LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Get ready. All right, guys, so I will put this up, and like I said, when you hear this out on in the audio land, make sure you go on over to my YouTube so that you definitely see this energy in action. It just adds another layer to it. And
So grateful that you
I
do
am.
that.
I'm so grateful now that we're connected. I mean,
Amazing.
I just know that
Yeah.
we're connected and that we're going to do wonderful things together, but in our own right and in our own person, in our own process, in our own, and in that way, kind of get into this bigger purpose. So I really appreciate that you came on. And for anybody who needs any information, go to the show notes over on my Lips and show notes, and we will see you next time on Owning Her Health. Thank you guys.
Amazing.